Hey everybody, Melon here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a teardown of the Pulsar X2H. Now the X2H is one of my favorite recent releases from Pulsar. This is a really cool shape that's really optimized for claw grip, and it's one of my favorite mice that they've released in quite a while. However, despite this being a great mouse, I've wanted to see if this mouse has the same repairability as the X2V2, which was very easy to service and work on, so I'm hoping we're going to see the same thing here. Now, before we get started, as always, I would just have to just say a little disclaimer here. Opening this unit up within the 2-year warranty from Pulsar will void your manufacturer warranty, so do not open this unit unless you are outside of the 2-year manufacturer warranty, or if you are okay losing your 2-year warranty. Again, this is meant to be a guide to show you how to repair the unit if you have to outside of the manufacturer warranty. This is not intended to show you how to open it up within your manufacturer warranty. Just know that if you open this unit up and you break it within the manufacturer warranty, Pulsar will not help you, and this is mostly a guide more than anything else. Now, as always, in order to take apart the Pulsar X2V2, you will need a precision screwdriver set and something to keep track of your screws like an ice cube tray like this. Now, all of the screws inside the X2H are just standard star head screws, so it's very easy to take apart. However, the sizing is a little different between some of the screws, so just make sure you have a set with different kinds of size heads in order to do that. But let's go ahead and start our teardown of the Pulsar X2H. Alright, so our first step is going to be removing the 2 screws at the bottom of the mouse here and here. Now you will need to remove the stock skates to get access to them. You only need to remove the bottom stock skate, but just make sure you have aftermarkets or a skate you can just replace it with. I have the X-ray pad obsidian dots, which I'm currently testing on here, but you can put on any kind of aftermarkets you like. Let's start off by removing these 2 star head screws. Now, next up, what you want to do is you want to put a little pressure right here and here, just gently squeeze, and with a little bit of pressure, you'll see a little bit of a gap start here. What you want to do is stick a pry bar or your fingernail in there and run it along the entire side of the mouse, stopping just outside right here and here. Alright, now that's done, you have to be very careful with this one because this one does have a ribbon connector just like the X2V2. What you want to do is peel it back from the top of the mouse like this and it will come apart. Now don't pull the shells apart because there is a ribbon connector inside here. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this over. We're going to go ahead and just kind of put it inside itself like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and pull up on the corners of this connector right here and here. And then once that's done, you can gently pull this ribbon connector out. Again, do not rip on the cable because these are very fragile. It's very easy to snap these. Be extremely gentle with this. But once that's done, you have the top and the bottom shell disassembled. Let's go ahead and disassemble the top shell, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the bottom shell in a second. For the top shell, everything is pretty straightforward here. This is very similar to how the X2V2 was. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to start off and remove a screw from here, and a screw from here. Alright, now next up, just like what we saw in the X2V2, the best way to take this out is going to be pull the shell out and then just gently tilt it, and then once you get to a certain point, there's a little bit of a lip right here, as you can see here. You just need to bend the shell back just a little bit to get it out. So we're going to go in, reach in from here. You may have to wiggle it a little bit to get it out. Sometimes you have to pull this top one off like that, pull it off, and then just gently pull back the side of the shell. And then once you've gotten to this point, you can just pull the entire thing straight out like this. So there is your daughter board with the Wano switches for the side buttons. That is the daughter board right there. And then just like what we saw with the X2V2, there is also this little feeder for the light here on the side of the mouse, which we'll take out as well. If this falls out, don't worry about this. This naturally comes off. And just like the X2V2, it's very easy for this to fall out, so don't worry about that. Now, one notable change between here is that the side button clicks are actually easier to get out on the X2H than they were on the X2V2. I still don't know why they were so hard to get out on the X2V2, but on the X2H, they're pretty straightforward. So all you do is what you want to do is you want to unclip them from both of the little clips on the side here and then just pull them straight out. So you just kind of put your fingernail under there and pull them out. And the side clicks come off in one little piece, just like this, nice and easy. So very simple to do that. Next up then, we're going to go ahead and do the main clicks. Now these are exactly the same as they were on the X2V2. All we have to do is undo a screw here, a screw here. Once that's done, you want to just take your finger and just gently pull up from the bottom of the clicks, and they should pop right out of the shell. A little bit of tension. Just like that, very easily. But aside from that, that is pretty much everything for the top shell. That's pretty easy to disassemble, very easy to service in typical Pulsar fashion. Let's go ahead and disassemble the main board next. Alright, so here is the main board. So we have the 3395 sensor, the Nordic MCU, the South Bridge. We have the same Reisha main switches we saw in the X2V2, and we have the same Wano blue dot for the scroll wheel click. The X2H does also have the same click mechanism we saw in the X2V2, which is a really cool feature to see back, so that's lovely to see. That really helps the stabilization and makes the scroll wheel feel a lot better, which is great to see. So to start off in terms of the disassembly, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. So just like we did previously, you want to get your fingernails just kind of in the gaps on here and pull, kind of wiggle it out. Don't pull by the cables because you will damage the cables. You just want to gently wiggle the whole connector out. Just like that. It can be a little finicky, just be careful with that. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the 5 anchoring screws. So the one here, 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 and here. Now keep in mind, go ahead and take this off so when you pull the board out, it comes off nice and easily. And just like we saw with the X2V2, all you have to do is just pull the board straight out. Just don't pull it forwards or backwards because this retention mechanism for the scroll wheel will hold it in place. So just make sure you pull the board straight up. So I like to grab the board by the main clicks here and just gently wiggle it off and pull it straight up just like that. And that is pretty much everything else for the disassembly of the X2H's base. So let's go ahead and start the reassembly process, and we'll start by putting this back together first. All right, so next up what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the main shell back together. If this bottom button does come off for whatever reason, put it back on where the hole is towards the top of the mouse, towards the USB-C end, and it goes right over this little slider right here. Just like that. So what I do is I hold it, and I hold back the battery connector like this, and then I flip this over. Now what you want to do is you want to line up this standoff with this hole in the board. Nice and easy, and the whole thing just slides back into place. Now, as I mentioned last time, if this doesn't naturally slide back into place, don't force it. Double check you have the button in the proper orientation. If it's not in the proper orientation, you can snap this and it will actually render your mouse completely inoperable, so be careful with that. But once everything's seated properly, just put a finger on the other side and just hold it in, and you're good to go. So let's go ahead and we're going to put in these retention screws back in, and then we'll reconnect the battery. Now, just like we did on the X2V2, make sure you don't put the screws in all the way. What you want to do is you want to put them in kind of like a car tire. So you want to start and alternate. So you want to go crisscross, crisscross like this, and do the central one last. Next up, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and reconnect this little stabilizer for the scroll wheel. It just goes back into its little connector there. And then this 3-pin connector just slides right back into the actual slot we took it out of. So you just gently push it in there. Again, make sure not to push by the cables. If it doesn't go in all the way, take your fingernails on the side and kind of press it into the board like that. Never press from the wires directly on top. Then you can refeed the wires through this little channel right here. Then that is all for the base reassembly. Let's go ahead and do the top shell next. All right, so the top shell is a little trickier, obviously, because there's more components, but it's still fairly straightforward. We'll start off by doing the side buttons first. So all you do for this is you just kind of have to bend this in a little bit and just slide it right back into its spot. So what I like to do is do this, kind of click it in for the side, click it in for the top, and they just kind of naturally find their way back into where they're supposed to go. Not too crazy. Again, if they don't seat properly, you can just reconnect them. The hardest part is just getting them into the rockers here and here, but once you get them in, they're pretty in for good. Next up, let's go ahead and do the main clicks. Now, the main clicks are exactly the same as how they were done on the X2V2. The only thing you really have to worry about with these is making sure that this anchoring mechanism right here, this little archway, goes over these connectors right here. If you put them in the wrong way, they can break the retention on these, which can break the main click, so just be very careful. The best way I've found to do them is to put the click in from the top like this, slide it in, and then once you get it in, you want to put it to the front where you can just kind of slide the whole thing over like that. You'll hear a little bit of a click, that means it's gone into place, and once everything's lined up, you can just go ahead and press straight down and the clicks are back installed. So I'm going to go do that to the other one. Now just double check and just put a little pressure on both these just to make sure they're seated properly, and then we can go ahead and put back in the retention screws here. Now be very, very, very careful with these screws. Do not over tighten these screws. If you over tighten them, you will break the main click. So be very gentle with them. Once you feel feedback from the screws, stop screwing them in. Now, once that's done, just go ahead and just double check that your clicks have some rebound to them. They won't have as much rebound as they will naturally, but just double check they have some rebound. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the daughter board here. So just like we saw in the X2V2, the process is exactly the same. You want to take this little threader for the light here, and that's going to go onto the board, onto this little connector right here. It just kind of naturally slots onto the board. Can be a little finicky. Sometimes you have to twist it around like a USB-C cable sometimes, but it should just naturally go on like that. And then next up, what you want to do is you just want to slide this thing back into the shell. The best thing to do is just kind of go off of these standoffs. So what I found to be the best is you just kind of grab it from the side here and just gently put it into the shell like so. It may take a little bit of wobbling to get it in. Now, once it looks like it's lined up, you will have to pull this part of the shell back to get it in. So just gently pull this part of the shell back, just a little bit, just to get it past like that. And it should seat itself pretty well. You can push down just to anchor it properly. Now just double check to make sure this little light feeder here has gone in properly. If it's a little off center, don't worry about it. The biggest thing is just to make sure that the light little indicator shows up at least halfway through that sideboard. It's very finicky. It's very difficult to get it in completely straight, but as long as it goes into the hole in some variety, you're good to go. Next up, let's go ahead and reapply these anchoring screws here. And then once that's done, just double check that the side buttons still actuate properly. If they feel a little loose, they will tighten themselves up after a little bit, so don't worry too much about that. All right, now once that's done, you want to go ahead and just double check that your side buttons are making actuation, so make sure they click on the daughter board. And if they click, you're good to go. Now, just like we saw with the X2V2, this is probably the hardest part of the entire repair. So you have to get the end of this ribbon cable back into this very tiny connector here. Now, this is very difficult to do. I'll do my best to show you guys how to do it with the setup I have here. It's a little tricky, but the best thing to do is to just basically put this on its side, and you want to pull out both the sides of this right here. Now, it's very finicky and it's very easy to push it back in, and 99% of the time when you try and push the cable back into this, it will push it in. So you kind of have to hold it open and put it in at the same time, which is kind of tricky. What we want to do is kind of pick it up like this, go to the side, and then just gently line it up. Now, again, I'll do my best to show you guys how to do this. It's very tricky. Just like this. Okay, I got extremely lucky. It went in right away. Don't push on the top of the cable. You have to push from the sides. And once you see that just a little bit of the blue on the top there, you want to go ahead and push this down to secure it in. And it should lock in from there. Now, at this point, before you put the unit completely together, I would go ahead and plug this into your computer and make sure the side buttons are actuating, make sure the main clicks are working. Just double check and make sure everything is working before you put it back together. But if everything works together properly and you're good to go, what you want to do is you want to take both sides like this. You want to kind of meet them in the middle, kind of like a triangle. And what you want to do is you want to take these hooks and you want to hook it into the top shell. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to put it together when it's like this. You want to naturally have it seed together. So it should look like this, where it has a natural connection there. Once that's done, you can just press the rest of this together and everything will connect. Now you'll have to go around the sides just to make sure everything has proper contact, but once that's done, everything should be good to go. Now at this point, I would just triple check again, make sure your side buttons work, make sure your main clicks work, the bottom buttons, just check everything before you put the final screw back together. But once that's done, you can go ahead and put in the two bottom screws onto the bottom of the mouse. And that is it. That is everything for taking apart and reassembling the Pulsar X2H. Overall, I'm very happy to see that the X2H is just as repairable as the X2V2 one, which is fantastic to see. This is a very serviceable mouse, which I'm very happy to see. Stay tuned for future teardowns on the channel. I'll be doing the Wise Owl Cloud next. So if you're interested in seeing how this mouse is built on the inside and how to take it apart and reassemble it, I will have a video on that coming up very soon. But that is everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next teardown video. Peace.